Are you staying in there, Romana?
Yes, because it's recording on my computer.
Sweet. I'll plug my headphones in. Actually, no, I can't do that. Sushrith, can you hear us? Rakesh, Rakesh, can you hear us? Sweet. Just made it in on time. I forgot about the time while I was working out. And I was like, ah.
You wondered why my door was closed and my blinds were down.
Yeah. Hey, Shweta. I'm good.
Exchanging seats. Musical chair.
Akshay Gulwade.
Yes. Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
That's good. Romana, have you ever met Akshay before?
No.
This is Romana. This is Akshay.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm here too. Hi, Romana.
Hello.
We have been talking on the Facebook, Romana.
Yes, we have.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, we're on time. We're not expecting many people today because we've altered the time around a little bit. So we might just get cracking. So what we're going to be doing today is going through 52 training tips, but we're not going to get through them all today. So we're going to get through about half of them today. And basically what it is it's a webinar that Strength Sensei ran. And what we're going to do is go through each dot point, pause the video, and then explain, okay, and answer any questions about each one, okay? So we did this with our team last week, and it was really useful. And, yeah, so we're really looking forward to it. It's going to be awesome. All right. So can everyone see my screen with not much on it? Yep. Awesome. Alrighty, now we need to get rid of this for a second. Okay, here we go.
Hi, welcome to the second
thumbs up if you can hear
webinar
it
for the Dojo of Strength. So
cool.
Today we're going to cover lots of topics. Basically, what I'm going to give you is one tip per week.
For those who don't know, Akshay, can you just put your thing on mute, please? Really noisy there.
Oh, yeah.
And if you have a question, then you can unmute. But for those who don't know, our Strength Sensei, his name is Charles Poliquin, and he passed away a couple of months ago, but basically he's well-renowned and regarded as the best strength coach there is, and he's trained Olympic medalists in 20-something different sports, and he was a strength coach for about 40 years or something like that. So very, very good, and that's who you're here talking. Okay, so that's what we're listening to.
Here
right
to
now.
apply to your training. If you apply one of those tips per week, your training efficiency is going to go way up. However, if you want to apply all 52 tips next week, it doesn't make you a bad person. So keep that in mind, and then we're going to start now. Number one, your body adapts to a given workout in 6 workouts or less. Meaning that if you don't change your workout every 6 workouts for that body part, you are compromising your gains. Now, for 70% of you, it's probably better if you change your workout every 4 times. So 6 being the maximum. So what you do is you do your workouts so that if you're training every 5 days or every 3 days, you will need to completely overhaul your workouts after 4 to 6 workouts. 6 being the maximum, 4 being optimal. But some of you don't have access to a lot of equipment, or it takes you a while to learn the workout. But if you're fairly advanced, you're not going to go wrong by changing the workout every fourth workout.
Okay, so really simple tip, that one. But basically, don't just keep doing the same workout every time you go to the gym for that body part. So if you're doing upper body workout today, that workout will work optimally and you'll improve on average for the first 4 workouts, but maximum 6. And then you need to change it. Does that make sense? If you keep doing the same, your body gets used to it, stops improving, okay? Because you're not challenging it anymore. It's adapted to that workout. Now, that doesn't mean you have to do everything completely different. It might mean instead of doing a bench press for 5 reps, you do an incline press for 8 reps, right? Okay, but it doesn't mean you can't do a press, right? It just means you have to change things. But generally, you would make minor changes almost every workout. And that might just be the rep ranges and other things that we'll talk about throughout the webinar, okay? So it's fairly rare that you would do exactly the same workout 4 times in a row. In PEPT, that will never happen because we make changes every single workout. Not huge changes, but changes to keep it fun and fresh for people. If you're training athletes, you can have more of the same repeated because they're going to be training for something really specific, and also because they just care about the result, not so much about something fun and exciting. Does that make sense? Okay.
Number 2, the number of reps is the loading parameter you adapt the quickest to. I learned this from my first mentor, Pierre Roy, and he was national coach in weightlifting in Canada. And I remember I was 17 years old, and he told me, what athletes get used the quickest to is actually the number of reps. And he had a system where, let's say if they did general preparatory phase, they did sets of 8. Next workout, they increase the weight, do sets of 7. Next workout, do sets of 6. Next workout, do sets of 5. Then change the program completely. I've operated in this manner for the major part of my 40 years as a strength coach, but over the last 10 years, I started to develop that neural profile system that now everybody thinks they understand, and they do a very poor copy of it. But in essence, if you just do this, changing the reps every time you do the next workout, you'll improve. But what I prefer to do is do, let's say, 8, 7, 6, 5, change the workout and maybe start at 6, 5, 4, 3, and then switch and go back up to high reps. I could go back up to 6 at 12, 11s, 10s, and 9s, and then change the workout. There's countless ways to do it, but you have to consider that reps is what people adapt the quickest to. And one of the reasons why I see people failing to achieve their goals is there's not enough variation within the training program. Now,
okay, so to simplify what he just said, you don't necessarily have to change the exercises every workout, but making minor adjustments to the reps will ensure that your body doesn't get used to the same stimulus, okay? So you can do the same exercises with heavier weights or lighter weights and more reps, and you're going to be giving your body something else to think about, and therefore you're going to improve faster. Does it make sense? So if you're going to change something every workout, the reps is the first thing that you're going to change. And notice that it doesn't have to be huge changes all the time. Sometimes it will be. Like you might work on a 8 to 12, hypertrophy range for a period of time, and then you might do a workout on really low reps. Or you might actually do a block of a few weeks on low reps, okay? So right now I'm working just on pure strength and doing lots of sets of 3 of everything, okay? And I'll probably do that for a few weeks, and then I'll go and do some higher reps and work on some muscle building stuff, okay? Just to keep adapting, keep responding. All right, cool.
You never increase the quantity of training at the expense of quality. This is a very basic principle in training, is that you see it also in the computer world. It's called GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. So if you do garbage sets that don't induce demands on your recovery ability, you're not going to get strong. And, you're humans, you're not computers. So some days it's going good, some days it's going bad. So Some days your strength is up, but your work capacity is down. Meaning, let's say Monday you did 100 kilos for 5 sets of 5, and then Thursday you're trying to do 102 kilos for 5 sets of 5. You do 2 sets of 5, and then you're doing 1 rep. That means that all the other sets will be garbage. So you don't drop the intensity. What you do is you drop the volume. So you only do 2 sets of that exercise that day. Tip number.
Okay, so in boot camp, a good example of that would be racing through the sets too fast without resting in between. So on a sculpt day, for example, it's like doing a set of squats and doing some abs and then huffing and puffing, jumping back under the squat rack and smashing it out, but doing it with poor form or less weight than we're capable of doing. Then if we just took, 10, 15 seconds to take a few deep breaths, and then we can rip in and do it with really good form and, bang out a couple of extra reps with good quality, okay? So more doesn't equal better always, okay? But then when you're feeling good, make the most of it is what I was saying before. So on Saturday, I was doing deadlifts and I wasn't feeling that great. I ended up doing 3 sets of 3 on 150 kilos, okay? So I did 3 sets of 3. And then just now I was working out and I was feeling pretty good. And I did 1 set at 150 and I'm feeling good, 3 reps. And then I did a set at 155, another 3 reps, still felt good. So I ended up doing another 2 sets. So I did a lot more work and a lot more weight today than on Sunday because today I was feeling good. So when you're feeling good, keep going. That makes sense? Like, make the most of it. But then on days when you're not feeling good and your strength decreases really quickly, you need to move on from that exercise at least, okay? And you might end up getting a lot less work done on that particular workout. Or if you're feeling not great on your deadlifts, if you're feeling a bit stiff or you're just feeling weak, it's a good sign that generally haven't recovered properly. But maybe when you jump in and start doing your squats, you might feel better on the squats because you're not as fatigued in those muscle groups. Does that make sense? So you've got to listen to your body, cash in when you're doing good, when you're feeling good, and back off a little bit when you're not feeling great. Or if you're not feeling super strong that day in your deadlifts, you might lower the weight and do some higher rep sets. You might do some sets of 8 or 10. Instead of doing those maximal loads because your nervous system hasn't fully recovered yet. Okay, any questions on that? Hope that kind of makes sense? Yeah. Like the old way of thinking would be tough it out, keep going. But that's, like he's saying, we're human. So you're going to have good days and bad days. You have to listen to that a little bit. But there is a fine line, obviously, because it's easy to make an excuse, right? I'm not feeling very good. Right. Normally, if you're feeling weak, you'll still be able to get higher reps done. Okay, if you can't do those super heavies. Okay.
4 is critical. It's called 2% rule. What it means is that you should be able to put 2% more weight on the bar if your reps are constant every workout, or add an extra rep. So let's say you did 100 kilos, 5 sets of 5 on Monday, and Thursday you go back. Well, if you're recovering properly and your program is designed properly, you should be able to do 102 kilos for 5 sets of 5. If you warm up and you can't get to 102 kilos, either you have not recovered or your lifestyle impedes your recovery. For example, if you spend a lot of time watching screens, that can really do you in.
Okay.
Tip number 5.
So you should be getting stronger every single workout. Either more reps or more weight for the same exercises. If you're not getting stronger every workout, you're either not recovering well or your program you're following is not working for you. But it's most likely your recovery. Okay. Make sense? I think sometimes in Sculpt and boot camp in general, we get caught in just letting our clients go through the motions, right? Just doing their squats. But if we look closely, we've got to make sure, have they actually improved their weights over the last few weeks, because every workout they should be increasing a little bit. Now that becomes slightly more difficult to tell when we're changing things every workout. Does that make sense? Like this Tuesday when we're doing legs, we're not doing the exact same legs we did last week. So therefore, it's a little bit more difficult to tell. But there's a thing called the rate of perceived exertion. That means how hard is someone working. So being vigilant, you're constantly looking for people. Are they working at their capacity or are they in their comfort zone? Okay? So if you're walking along and someone looks really comfortable with those squats, they're doing good form, and they look like they're not straining too much, what would we do?
Change.
Yeah, get them to add some weight, right? So, hey, let's add these 1.25s to the side. Or next set, I want you to do an extra 2 reps. Okay? Because just because the program we wrote for them says 8, is there any benefit in them doing 8 reps if they're not even struggling on the 8th rep? Right? No. So you can either rack it up and then add more weights for the next round, or they can just bang out a couple of extra reps. Okay? And then next set, add some more weight on. Okay? So that's important to note. Don't get stuck in our thinking there. All right. Cool. Now, by the way, as we go through, if you have questions, please just unmute yourself and sing out.
You have to take time to lay the foundation. One thing I see with a lot of strength athletes is lack of patience. And they're too lazy to do the reps. Paul Carter has written an excellent book on the concept of basics. You can find it on Amazon. But the key to this whole book is you take your time to get strong. Talk to Ed Cohn or Matt Denning, who are powerlifting experts. They will tell you the same thing. People are far too impatient to make the right gains. So what happens is that you get into singles and triples way too early. They go for their max every week. One of the things that has really messed up training science is Instagram. People want to show how strong they are every single workout, but it doesn't allow people to build a base. So get your fucking phone off the weight room and do your work reps. Tip number 6.
So a beginner trainer doesn't need to do a lot of low rep stuff. Okay? Take time to build up a base of strength and get your form right. Now, obviously, in our model, we test them once every 13 weeks, okay? So it does depend on when they come into the fold. In group training, that's just one of the compromises that has to be made. But if we're training them on an individual basis, you know, we'd be doing 8 to 12 reps, getting them nice and strong for a block before we then go down and work on the lower rep stuff and really work on the nervous system, okay? But in a group training, you've got experienced people and new people, so you've kind of got to meet somewhere in the middle, right?
This is really old. I learned this as a kid, but it's still true. I mean, the human body is not that dramatically evolved. I found in a French book that was translated from a book from East Germany, which was translated from Russia. 30 years later, I got the Russian original, but the translations were good. He said, and that's very well known, strength physiology, he said back in 1970, for hypertrophy training, you need to do the maximum of reps plus 1. Basically what he's saying is that the ability to push to failure is what guarantees hypertrophy. And Schwarzenegger said that. I've talked to Robbie Robinson about that. The key is that the guys who are really big, they're the ones that do the reps that nobody else wants to do. You can take all the drugs of all the top bodybuilders and put them inside of you and train. They won't do much unless you push yourself. So, and people tend to gossip a lot about drugs and make up bullshit, but you know, it's not the biggest drug users are the biggest. It's the guys that actually push themselves to the outer limits, and that's why they get big. So, as Schwarzenegger said, champions do reps, others won't.
So you have to work hard to grow muscles. That's basically what I'm saying. All right? Not going to get into great shape without working hard. Okay. And I think a lot of people, especially clients that have been training with us for a while, they slip into a comfort zone, right? So we really need to be conscious of that and making sure that we're always pushing, you know, and challenging our bodies to respond, because that's how we grow. That's how our bodies change, by giving them a stimulus that it has to adapt to.
Now, next principle is what we call the 7% rule.
Now, who knows what relative strength is? What does that term mean, relative strength? It's not how strong your cousins are. Okay.
How strong you are.
Okay. Yep.
How strong you can lift, like how strong you are.
It's really noisy there. Can you put it on mute again? Yeah. It's making some crazy noises. So relative strength is how strong you are relative to your body weight. Okay. So if today I'm 88 kilos and I can bench 100 kilos, if I want to increase my relative strength, I want to get stronger without getting bigger. Okay. So if you were a boxer or a wrestler or something like that, that would be super important, right? Because you fight in weight classes. So relative strength is really, really important for a wrestler. All right, because you don't want to go up in the weight class because you've got to fight bigger people, etc. And some people, they just don't want to get big, or any kind of athlete, like if you think of AFL or soccer, something where you have to run a lot. It's not going to be good to be really heavy, is it? Yet you still want to be strong because you've got to tackle, you've got to be powerful off the mark, you've got to be able to jump, take hits, things like that. But you don't want to be bulky because it's going to slow you down. All right? So relative strength is really important.
Rule for relative strength. What it means is that you need to keep the quality of your training up. And when you train for relative strength, that is, when you're trying to get as strong as possible at a given body weight, you need to work on your relative strength. So your strength on a pound for pound basis, or kilogram per kilogram body weight basis. That depletes the nervous system. So your drop-off index cannot be more than 7%. What does it mean in simple English? Let's say if your first set is 100 kilos for 5, you should do a set. There'll be some fatigue. You could go, let's say, to 98 kilos, doing that set of 5. Next set, you may have to drop to 96 kilos doing a set of 5. But once you get past down 7%, which in this case would be 93 kilos, you stop. Some days you have great days, sometimes not so good. But once I discovered this law, it would allow the athletes to ride the wave when they're feeling good, and be smarter when they have not fully recovered. Does that make sense?
Okay, so if you're training for strength only, okay, so strength, not building muscle, once you drop below 7% of your maximum effort, basically that means your nervous system is cooked, okay? It needs to recover, okay? So when we're training for relative strength, basically you're training your nervous system. When we're training for hypertrophy, we're training our muscles, okay? Relative strength is training our body to recruit more muscle fibers to perform a lift, right? So that's nervous system. Hypertrophy is we want to grow our muscles to become bigger. Okay, so that means more reps and less rest, because the muscles don't need as much rest as the nervous system needs. So when you're training for strength, it's low reps, heavy weights, long rest. When we're training hypertrophy, muscle growth, higher reps, obviously less weight because that's the only way you can do higher reps, and less rest in between because we're trying to damage the muscles as much as possible. Okay? And also nutrition would change dramatically. With hypertrophy, we're going to eat more. Relative strength, you need to be mindful of your calories so you don't put on too much weight. Kind of make sense? Okay, so once we dip 7% drop in performance, that means we haven't recovered. We need to rest or move on to another exercise for that workout.
Number 8. So for hypertrophy, the drop-off rule is 20%. If I go back to my 100 kilo example, let's say you did 100 kilos for 10. As you fatigue throughout the workout, once you get to 80 kilos for 10, it's time to stop. So let's say by your 4th set, you're down to 80 kilos for 3, then 3 sets was enough. So keep that in mind. Tip number 9.
That one pretty simple. Okay. So if you can lift 100 kilos for 10, there's no point doing 20 sets of it and then by the end you can only do 20 kilos because 20 kilos is not enough weight for you based on your strength to stimulate muscle growth. So you're wasting your time. It'd be like going for a walk and expecting your legs to get bigger. Right? If only it were that easy.
The upper body needs more variation than the lower body. Strength coaches will call it, smart exercise and dumb exercise. As a rule of thumb in the lower body, the body is dumber. In other words, it needs more repetition of the same stimulus to make progress. In the upper body, because we use it a lot for coordination purposes, we tend to plateau much faster. And if you look at all the research that's ever been done on periodization, all the models show that the upper body adapts faster than the lower body. That's why powerlifters may change all their exercises in the bench press every 2 weeks, but they can keep squatting and deadlifting up to 16 weeks. Tip number 10.
Okay, so more subtle variations in the upper body training. So that might mean bench press 1 week, incline bench the next week, negatives on the bench. So that, again, doesn't mean you have to not do the same exercise. It just means you have to vary it up. More variation in your tempo, your reps, your angles, dumbbells versus barbells, things like that. Okay, for your upper body. Lower body, squat and deadlift a lot, right? They're obviously going to be the mainstays for your lower body.
Use most bang for your buck exercises. So squats, bench presses, deadlifts, chin-ups are examples of most bang for your buck exercise. So that's the ones that have the highest return. So some people will say, you know what, I'm not going to do squats with a barbell. I'm going to do step-ups or I'm going to do leg extension. Well, if you're not interested in results, go right ahead and use those so-called substitutions. But if you want the maximum amount of results in the least amount of time, then you want to stick to the basic 4 movement patterns. Cover.
Okay. So if you do hard exercises, you get better results. Simple? It's like that old saying, you get out what you put in. If an exercise is very hard and challenging, most people don't want to do it, right? But that's the reason it's challenging is the reason it gives you adaptation and your body responds and makes progress from it. So seek out the challenges like your deadlifts, your squats, your bench press, your chin-ups, those kind of exercises that are hard are the best ones for you.
The whole force curve over time. What it means is that depending on a muscle group, how much force at which angle you can accomplish varies dramatically. So biomechanists have come up with the concept of a force curve. So for example, in the extensor chain, like squat, bench, deadlift, as you extend a joint, you're actually getting stronger. That means that it's an ascending strength curve. That's why in the bench press, if you only do the top 4 centimeters of the range of motion, you can use a lot of weight. But as soon as you try to drop that bar past 5 centimeters, it's going to pin you. Same thing in squat. It's much easier to do a partial deadlift from the top than a full deadlift from the bottom. So the point is that it's really important for you to do a bunch of exercises over time, not in the same workout necessarily, where you overload specific points in the strength curve. And there are 3 points in the strength curve: the stretch position, the mid-range, and the shorten position. Now, rest intervals versus...
So just to clarify, let's say we're doing a bicep curl and imagine my arms, down straight, but we're in the stretch position. That's the bottom of the strength curve. That's going to be where we're weakest, right? And then at the midpoint position, we're gaining strength, but we're strongest at the top, okay? So what he's saying there is overload the total curve over time. So next week, what you'll notice in the bench press is it's a 1.5 bench press. So that's going to overload the stretch position of the strength curve because you're doing a full rep followed by a bottom half rep. Does this make sense? Cool. So from time to time, we need to vary which part of the strength curve gets the focus. Who's heard of or seen bands and chains used before? Who knows what chains are in weightlifting when you use chains? So imagine we're doing barbell squat, and imagine there's some really long chain hanging over the barbell and sitting on the floor. Can you imagine that? Like on the end of the barbell, barbell's on my back. As you squat down, more of the chain is going to be sitting on the floor. Okay, because where are we weakest? We're weakest at the bottom position in the stretch position. As we stand up, more of the chain comes off the floor and therefore it becomes heavier, okay? So here's a good example. This, my headphones, imagine they're the chain, right, dangling over the barbell. As we squat down, more of the chain sitting on the ground, therefore the barbell becomes lighter. As we stand up, we're lifting the chain off the ground, therefore it becomes heavier where we're stronger. So we're going to get some chains in that when we do we're launching our open gym here soon. And they're the kind of variations that we want to be able to get people using, especially people that have been training for a long time. Okay, it can just be a really good different stimulus to throw in there from time to time. Cool.
Training effects. What you want to get out of the training effect dictates the length of the rest intervals. So if you're interested in body composition changes, let's say you're moving up a weight class or going down a weight class, you're trying to put muscle on or lose fat, short rest intervals are better indicated. But if you want to get really strong and not gain size, then you have very long rest intervals. And of course, if all you're concerned with is hypertrophy, your rest interval times would be more medium.
So muscle growth or fat loss, shorter rest. Okay? So for fat loss, it's going to be typically very short rest, right? Think about your Tabata 20 on, 10 off, or a 40 on, 20 off circuit. If you're trying to build muscle, it would typically be around 60 seconds rest. 50 to 60 seconds typically. If you're trying to get strong, it'll usually be between 3 and 5 minutes of rest. Because your nervous system takes a long time to recover in between those heavy sets. And that's why when we're doing strength training, a lot of the time we superset things. Okay? Because otherwise it takes all day to do anything. Okay. Cool.
So, low rest intervals plus using TEMR and lows is best for GH release.
Okay. What's GH? Yep, Akshay. Growth hormone. Yeah, growth hormone. So growth hormone is what we need to get bigger, to build muscle. So low rest intervals and maximal loads for 10 reps. So that's why we say 8 to 12 reps for hypertrophy, right? 10 smack in the middle of that.
Presently, there's quite a bit of controversy on does it really matter or not. I take all strength training research with a grain of salt, and I prefer to rely on my personal experience. What I found out in the last 40 years is the research tends to catch up to me. In other words, I've done stuff back in the 80s that only now the research backs up. For example, I was telling people back in the 80s that one of the faster ways to get stronger is to lower the bar eccentrically, slow and controlled. And of course, a lot of people say, fuck, there's no research on that, bullshit. And now the research has come out of Brazil, then it's true. Well, it was true for the last 40 years, okay, before the research came out. So that's why I am utterly convinced that the low rest intervals plus a 10 RM load is the best for GH release and body composition changes. Tip 14, if you want to gain strength but not get size, which is relative strength, you need to do high sets of 3 RM plus long rest intervals. We're talking 4 to 5 minutes before you come back to the same muscle. So let's say if you're doing a set of chin-ups for 3, if you wait 5 minutes before you do the next set, you're not going to do too many sets in the workout. So the way around that is to wait 2.5 minutes, and go do the opposite movement pattern. Let's say overhead press. Then you rest 2.5 minutes, and you go back to your chin-ups, and then repeat the process. Take 2.5 minutes, and go back to presses. What research has shown late, because we knew it in the weight room in the 80s, is that you can do a lot more work within an hour, but also you don't fatigue as fast. So if you were to say, do a set of chin for 5 reps and rest 5 minutes, you're going to retain more strength if you rest 5 minutes while in the meanwhile you do the opposite muscle group. Why? Physiologists are not sure, but one thing we do know is if you pair the antagonist with the agonist, you don't lose strength as quickly. One of the theory advanced is what they call different motor unit pool stimulation, and that allows you to have what they call active recovery. Choose the right time of day. Some of you should train about 9 in the morning, and some of you should train at 5 in the afternoon. How do you know? Your sex drive. If you wake up in the morning and you got an erection that could fuck a coconut, then it's probably in your best interest to do morning workouts. But if you're hornier than the 3-ball billy goat around 5 in the afternoon, then 5 o'clock training is best. There's excellent research out of Slovakia that clearly demonstrate the efficacy of training at the right time for you. Tip 16, you're only as good as your recovery. And that's what people neglect often. They'll train really hard in the gym, but then they have a lifestyle that does not support the recovery. So they may leave the gym, not take a post-workout drink, wait 3 hours before you eat, and so on. So being very consistent with your recovery plan is one of the ways to ensure maximal gains. So you can download my book from the website, Best Hacks to Hit the Sack, and it gives you plenty of tips on how to increase your recovery. And of course, particularly through better sleep. Tip 17, the higher your training age, the less reps you should do. What does that mean? Is that if you're training for strength training and you want to get really strong, obviously that's the goal, you will find that high reps will actually make you lose strength. So what happens is that as you get stronger, your neurological efficiency increases. Right?
What does that mean? Your neurological efficiency increases. Your neurological efficiency increases. That simply means your body is able to recruit more muscle fibers, a higher percentage of muscle fibers. Okay, so let's say if I'm deadlifting a weight, maybe I'm able to recruit 75% of the muscle fibers in the muscle groups that are going to lift the deadlift. Does that make sense? But if someone comes on their first day, maybe their body can only recruit 30% of the muscle fibers. Therefore, they're not going to be as strong. Even if they have the same amount of muscle mass as me, then they're going to be nowhere near as strong because their neurological efficiency is not as good, as high. Does that make sense? So neurological efficiency simply means how many muscle fibers can you recruit? How efficient is your nervous system at saying, hey, muscles, it's time to work? And that's why some people, that's why you have different strength levels even when muscle mass is the same. Okay? Because the nervous system is more efficient in some people. And obviously the more you train it, the more efficient it gets. And that's what relative strength is, basically. Yeah.
So what does that mean? Is that when you're a beginner, if I give you 70% of your max, you'll probably be able to do 12 reps. We know from years of experience that the intensity zone, minimal intensity zone to get strong is 70. So 70 to 100% of max. The interesting thing is that people who have trained 7 years properly, which is rare, but people who have trained 7 years properly, when you take their new max, which is usually about triple of what they did the first day, they can only do 6 RM at 70% of max, which means that reps above 6, when you're that strong, are pretty much a waste of time because the intensity on the barbell is too low. Tip 18, women always need to do higher reps for a given intensity zone. What happens is that, and that's been confirmed to me by elite Chinese weightlifting coaches, is that if you look at total training volumes of the best weightlifters around the world, women always can do more reps at a given percentage of maximal load. And that's why their training volume is usually 30 to 40% greater than men when they're training for the Olympics. Tip number.
Okay, so one of the reasons men are stronger than women generally is because the nervous system is built in a manner to basically be more efficient at lifting heavy stuff. Okay, so a female, you'll find their as they go up in weight, there won't be as big a jump from like what they can do for 10 reps to what they can do for 1 rep. But for men, what they can do for 10 reps and what they can do for 1 rep will be drastically different, typically. Does that make sense? Okay, so what he's saying is the stronger that... sorry, no, this is the women one. So basically what that means is women will be doing a higher percentage of their 1 rep max when they're doing like 10 reps or whatever. So a lot of workouts are calculated, use the weight that's 70 or 80 or 85% of your 1 RM. That's how they tell you what weight to use. So what he's saying is women if they're using that 7 or that 80%, typically they'll have to do more reps to get to fatigue than if I was doing 80% of what my 1 rep max, I wouldn't be able to do 10 reps. But Romana doing 80% of her 1 rep max might be able to do 10 reps. Does that kind of make sense? No? It does? Okay, yeah. So you'll notice that, like women, maybe they do 80 kilo deadlifts for 10 reps, and then maybe they can max 110, okay? But a man might be doing 80 kilos for 10 reps as well, but he might be able to get a max of 125, 130, okay? So the number of reps you can do for 10 won't correlate to the number you can do for 1, because that has more emphasis on your neurological efficiency, not just your strength, muscle strength. Yeah.
Number 19, the function of the muscle dictates the number of reps. Some muscles are made to contract very fast, and some muscles are made for endurance. For example, the hamstrings, which are highly recruited in jumps and sprints, are about 60% fast twitch. So typically you will never go above 8 reps. If you look at something like the calf muscles, the soleus muscle, which is an anti-gravity muscle, meaning that it fires when you're standing up, is about 88% slow twitch, meaning that it is better for you to do high reps in those lifts. During this step.
So some muscles going to respond better to low reps, heavy weight. Others, so calves especially, they're an endurance muscle. Hamstrings are going to be a powerful muscle. And and most of everything else is a combination of the two. Now, also every person is going to be slightly different. Okay, yeah. So not every person has the same composition of fast twitch versus slow twitch. Okay, so some people will respond better in general to lower rep training. So I know for me, I'm a fast twitch person. So I was always fast, but not great on endurance. So my body responds better when I do low reps, heavy weights. Other people, their bodies will respond better when they increase the reps and do more reps. Okay, and they'll get bigger and stronger that way. Especially if they're less of a sprinter, if that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
Step 20. During a specialization phase, more sets may be warranted. What's a specialization phase? Specialization phase is when you try to bring up a body part or a muscle group up to restore balance. I'll give you an example from alpine skiing. Skiing is highly demanding on the quadriceps, so it's very easy for alpine skiers to maintain the strength that they've gained in their quadriceps in the off-season merely by just skiing. However, the hamstrings, if they're not trained about every 5 days, will atrophy over the World Cup season. And what does that do? It destabilizes the knee and increases risk of injury. We found with our alpine ski team back in the late 80s and the 90s that the introduction of specialization phases for the hamstrings at the beginning of the jump rope phase and some hamstring work in the off season basically dropped the amount of knee injuries to nil. Okay, so but if you come back from an alpine skiing season, I like the skiers to be about 6 to 8 weeks of high volume hamstring work and just maintain the strength of the quadriceps. Tip 21.
So we always talk about balance, like muscular balance, and most of our workouts we design are very balanced. Like they'll have a deadlift and a squat, for example, or a press and a row. But if somebody's weaker in the back than the chest, it might be a good idea to do more rows than presses for a period of time, right? Or if someone's weaker in the hamstrings and the quads, they'll do more deadlifting exercises than squatting for a period of time until it evens out, okay?
The length of the rest interval dictates the hormonal response you're doing a workout. So if you want body composition changes, you want to make sure your rests are very short and that the load's about 10 RM. In classical strength training, the way weightlifters or powerlifters train, you're not so much concerned with hormonal response. What you want is to impose as much tension on the muscles as possible. And the only way you can do that is to have plenty of rest between sets. Tip 22, the metabolic cost of an exercise influences the number of sets to be performed in any given exercise. So for example, if you have power snatches versus wrist curls, the metabolic cost is much greater in power snatch because of the amount of muscle mass involved compared to wrist extension. So when you're trying to change body composition, especially for athletes, you want to make sure that the exercise you select have the highest amount of metabolic cost. That's why the big compound exercise is critical in terms of that. Tip 23. The nervous system takes 5 to 6 times longer to recover than the muscular system. What does it mean is that if you just look at the cellular level, muscles recover very fast. The problem is that the muscles are innervated by the nervous system, and that one takes a long time. So you can't rely on biopsy studies to say, okay, that's enough rest. So weightlifting coaches, I figured out a long time ago, but exercise physiologists who look at the World Tour straw will say, well, it only takes you a few seconds to restore the ATP-CP system. But the weightlifting coach would say, well, try it. So for example, if you do 3 RM in the front squat, if you rest only 1 minute, there's no way you'll be able to repeat that 3 RM. You rest 5 minutes, you can repeat that 3 RM, or you may go up.
So that's why when you're training for strength with your lower reps and higher weights, you need longer rest because your nervous system takes longer to recover than your muscular system. Okay? If you're just training the muscles and going for hypertrophy, if that's your main goal, then it doesn't need as much rest. You don't need as much rest. Romana.
Is that real just for when you're working out for rest periods, or is that just in general? Like me at the moment, like my muscles are still really, really sore from like Monday's workout. So should people be waiting an extra day after for their nervous system to catch up, or is that not such a big deal, or is it just the rest periods?
Yeah, good question. So what he's talking about in that slide was during a workout.
Okay.
Yeah. But however, everyone recovers differently. I would even say that it could be the opposite sometimes. You know, so in hypertrophy training, usually you'll have longer in between workouts of the same body part than you will in strength training. Okay, because remember the goal is to let your muscles grow, whereas in strength training, your goal is to develop neural efficiency, right? So you actually have to practice the same exercise more often. So what you'll normally find with strength training is they'll do the same muscle groups more often. And they'll actually do, like a power lifter, for example, will often do a whole body workout, say 3 times a week, where they'll always deadlift, squat, and press, some kind of variation of that. Whereas a weightlifter, a bodybuilder will definitely train every day, but they'll often only hit each muscle group once a week.
Yeah.
But they'll do a lot of volume in that one session. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
So typically, if your goal is hypertrophy, then you have more rest in between working the same muscles, but less rest during the workout.
Yes.
But then more rest in between workouts.
Yep.
For the same muscle group.
Yep.
Yeah. So kind of the reverse of what happens in a workout, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, we've got time for a couple more.
Yeah.
So tip 24, the length of rest intervals, it dictates the hormonal response to a given workout. I'm not repeating myself here. What I'm trying to do is to emphasize that you have to take that into account. If you want to bring about maximal body composition change, you want to keep that very short. But if you're working on the nervous system, the hormones don't really matter that much. But your neurotransmitters will matter greatly when you're doing strength training. Tip 25, the lower back benefits all muscle groups. So, for example, your arms haven't grown since Jim Carter. If you're going to see me, I would evaluate how much lower back work you've done. And if you have not done much lower back work, I would make you train your lower back 5 days a week. So, aren't you going to overtrain? No, if you change the exercises. And you only deadlift in that case once a week. So you could do, let's say, Monday deadlifts, next day back extension, then 45-degree back extension, then you could do reverse hypers. It doesn't matter, but what you need to do is make sure that you vary your exercises quite a bit. Tip number 26, the length of the rest intervals is a function of magnitude of range of motion. So the greater the range of motion of the exercise, the longer you need to rest. So if you're doing crunches, you're doing about 60 degrees of range of motion. If you do power snatches, you're basically taking from the floor to over your head. So the number of degrees you cover is much greater than you do in a crunch. And that's why when you recover, it takes you much longer to get there. Tip 27, short intra rest intervals permit the recruitment of higher threshold units. So if maximal strength is like your big goal, it is perfectly fine to rest between reps within a set. So in 1948, somebody invented cluster training, but it took till 2008. Intra-set
just means during the set. Okay, so you actually rest in between reps briefly.
To come about in scientific literature. So what they showed in the 40s is that, let's say if you take a weight that's 90% of your max, typically you'll do 3 reps. So what the guys figured out is that let's do 5 reps with the 3 RM weight, but the only way we can do that is if we rest between reps. So classical strength training would have been 6 sets of 3 at 90%, which is a total of 18 reps at 90%. But with cluster training, what you do is you do a single, rest 15 seconds, do a single, rest 15 seconds, do a single, until you've done 5 singles. So now you've done 5 reps at 90%. You do that for 5 sets. It gives you a greater volume of 25 reps at 90%. So when you do cluster training, you actually increase volume while keeping a high intensity. And it's one of the best training systems to get strong.
Now, what he's just told you there is like for only very advanced people. You never get, doing anything like that. So he's saying like, pick your 3 RM weight and do 5 reps with it. So you do a rep, rest 10 to 15 seconds. Do another rep, rest 10 to 15 seconds until you've done 5 reps, and then have a big rest. Okay. That's super advanced. Only someone who's been training for a long time and probably has hit a bit of a plateau, do that workout, and they won't be able to move the next day.
The more advanced you are, the more variation you need. So beginners can do very boring programs and make progress. Or what you'll find once you've passed 7 years of proper training, your coach has to be very creative in changing the training stimulus. So Dave Tate is a good way to say it. The program that makes you bench 200 pounds is not the program that makes you bench 300 pounds, and it's not the program that's going to make you bench 400 pounds. So as you get more advanced, you will need more variation.
So typically we don't have to worry about that too much with most of our clients, because even the guys that have been there for a couple of years are still intermediate trainers, really, intermediate trainees. And because we're giving variation all the time, more often the problem in our setup with group training is actually too much variation. What do I mean by that? Too much variation. Let's say if you wanted to get good at playing golf, and on Mondays you practice golf, and then on Tuesdays you practice swimming, and then on Wednesdays you practice tennis, and pick a sport every other day, but you only practice golf once a week. Would you improve a lot? Probably not. But if you practice golf every day, you'd get better quickly, right?
Yeah.
So if my goal is to get strong and every second day I do boxing or circuits, I'm not going to get strong very quickly, right?
Yeah.
At the beginning, I'm going to improve rapidly because I could look at weights and get stronger because I haven't done anything for 20 years, right? But after a while, your body is going to adapt to that stimulus. It actually needs more specific stimulus and more of the same stimulus to adapt better. So that's one of the major reasons we're bringing in our open gym program, okay, so that people can get more specificity in their training. For the people that want to get stronger, they can focus on that. For the people who want to get fitter, they can focus on those kind of sessions. Does that make sense? Because if we're constantly doing a bit of cardio, a bit of strength, that's cool for general fitness, but you're going to plateau. That's why most CrossFitters plateau after 3 to 6 months of CrossFit.
Yes.
That's too much variation. They don't practice the same things enough. Cool. So if you're training an athlete for a single sport, it's not what we do typically, but I used to train a lot of AFL players, and the programming is very repetitive, okay? Because we're actually trying to get good at specific things. We're not trying to be okay at everything. We're trying to be really good at certain things, like speed off the mark, like jumping, like strength over the ball, so we don't get knocked off by the opponent. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Remember the different sports rule, okay? Doesn't make sense. Okay, so we're about out of time, but what we're going to do is pick the number one thing that you learnt tonight. I know we haven't got much of a crowd here. Romana, can you unshare the screen, or is that what I have to do somehow? I have to do it? It's a mystery. There it is. Stop share. Okay. Okay, cool. Akshay, you're the only person who's been on the whole time. What did you learn?
Hypertrophy, it's my today's learning, most important learning computer, heights and low weights and less rest, for muscle growth. As I'm training for hypertrophy.
Yeah. Remember that it's not low weights. Yeah. It's still the maximum you can do for your 10 reps.
Yes.
It's just obviously lower than if you're only doing 3 reps.
Yes.
But don't get confused that it's a low weight. It should be as much as you can push for 10 reps. And remember the rule for hypertrophy, you do your maximum number of reps plus 1. In other words,
yes,
you push every set should be very hard.
Very hard, yeah.
reason why a lot of people stop improving and they get stuck is because they just work at 80-90% of their capability, which in the beginning is enough to get results, but once you've been training for a while, it's not going to cut it anymore.
Yeah.
Romana, what did you learn tonight?
I wrote a few things down. The nervous system takes 5 to 6 times longer to recover than the muscular system. That one stuck with me this time, but it was also interesting to learn what relative strength actually means, like how strong you are in relation to your body weight. And I have a question about that.
Yep.
Is there like a chart or something that says like how strong you are in relation to your body weight? Like if I can lift double my body weight, like does that mean I'm a certain level? Like is there
I see. Normally the way you calculate it is just you divide, it's per lift, right? So it's not like a generic number, but say I deadlifted 160 kilos and I'm 88 kilos. Let's say I'm 80 kilos to make it easy.
Yeah.
Math, right? Then I can lift two times my body weight. Okay. Right. Or if I weighed 100 kilos, then I can only lift 1.6 times my body weight on a deadlift. So in relative terms, the 80 kilo athlete is much stronger than the 100 kilo athlete.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So that's how you calculate it. Or on a bench press, I can lift 1.3 times my body weight or whatever.
Yeah.
So typically in a deadlift, 2 times body weight is good.
Yeah.
And I mean, everything else is just relative to you yourself anyway, really.
Okay.
Trying to improve where you're at. But if you gain 20 kilos in body weight and your numbers don't increase that much in strength, then you haven't necessarily gotten stronger.
No, that's right.
So the thing to remember is it is possible to you can't tell someone's strength by how much muscle they have. So someone might have more muscle than me, but I might be stronger than them. But if I grow in muscle, I will get stronger. But you can't get bigger and not stronger. But some people are big and not strong.
Yeah.
But if they got bigger, they would get stronger. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The first time I heard that, I was like, what are you on about? It's confusing. Okay, cool. Good one, guys. Thanks, Simran. Thanks, Ahuti, for tuning in.
Yeah.
And enjoy the rest of your day. And next time, we will go through the second half of that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah. Bye.